This conference
is
will now be recorded.
March 9th. This is meeting of the regular meeting of the Rome City Council. Kathy Koneski is absent tonight. We do have a quorum, so we'll call this to order. We're going to start out with our invocation. That will be Pastor Van Zandt.
Let's go to Lord in prayer. Dear the Father, I thank for this day, and I thank for everything it's given us. And I'm certainly thankful for just the good weather that we've had. I pray that you'll please us protect our first responders as they're out responding for the patrons of Rome. And I pray that you'll please us allow us to be thankful that we have a government that just looks out for us. And I pray that you'll please us put a hedge of protection around them, continue to be with both the fire chief and the police chief, and I pray that you'll please us allow them to just have safety during this time in our city. Lord, I pray that you'll please us be with those who are governing the city as well. I pray that you'll please us be with the city council and the mayor, and I pray that you'll please us allow us to make the best decisions and just guide us and lead us with your hand. And I pray that you'll please us allow us to just continue to look for the betterment of this city. Lord, I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, public comments. Council is not permitted to take action on or discuss any comments made to the council this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. However, a council member or mayor may make a statement of fact regarding the item, make a statement concerning the policy regarding the item, and or may propose that the item be placed on a future agenda, or direct the city administrator to contact the individual to address. If you are attending the meeting via live streaming and you would like to make a public comment, you must email the city secretary at citysecretary@cityofrome.com prior to 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting, and must identify each subject you plan to present to be recognized. If the writer of a public comment is unable to read their own comment, it should be given to a friend, family member, or associate that is able to attend in person and read the statement in their stead. Public comments made in person require the speaker to submit the sign-up form to the city secretary prior to the meeting, and the form must identify each subject the speaker plans to present. A statement of no more than 3 minutes may be made. There will be no yielding of time to another person. Comments should be directed to the entire council, not individual members. Engaging in verbal attacks or comments intended to insult, abuse, malign, or slander any individuals shall be cause for termination of time privileges and removal from council chambers. And announcement, City Council meeting March the 23rd at 6:00 p.m. And also we've got the Easter egg hunt, our Easter egg hunt coming up on April the 1st over at the Family Park. And what time does it start? It starts at 1. We know that there's an earlier celebration over in Newark as well for their Easter egg hunt. All right, council have any announcements?
I do. As posted earlier on social media from our police department, I'd like to recognize Sergeant Soltaire on obtaining 5 years with the City of Rome Police Department. It's great to see those employees investing their time into staying with the city, especially Sergeant Soltaire. He's been with us a while. That's why we need to continue investing in our employees so they continue to stick around and do such a great job. So, Chief, if you could pass along our congratulations to Sergeant Soltaire. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, let's move along. Consent agenda. Number 1, minutes of City Council regular
Mayor,
session.
we need to do public comment.
I know that. I knew that. I've told them both. She doesn't feel well. Carmen, we're going to get us out of here. Anyway, public comments. Go.
First up, we have Joanne Wilson.
I want to thank everybody in here for helping us get through that god-awful windstorm that we had. The city kept us posted. You first responders, you know what all y'all had to do. Thanks a bunch, and also thanks to the linemen with Encore. We evidently fared a lot better. But secondly, I want to comment on what Patty said. Our Easter egg hunt is the 1st of April, Rhome City Park, 1 to 3. We have a free raffle, and you can make pictures with the mayor. And we have coordinated with New York. Theirs is 10 to 12. They also have an Easter bunny, and I'm not sure what all else, but there'll be photo ops at both places. And we have a free raffle here. The only thing that will cost is we have snow cones available at $3 each. This Saturday, and this is something you animal lovers may want to support, the New York Park from 9 to 5 has a fundraiser for Wise County Animal Shelter. They will have booths, and I'm not sure what all, but it is very good effort to put it toward the animal shelters that keep overgrowing. Thank you.
What else you got, Shana?
Deborah Beecraft.
Hello, I'm Deborah Beecraft. Mayor, council, staff, citizens, I want to let everyone know that the Vietnam Traveling Tribute Wall is coming to Wise County Fairgrounds. On March 28th, there will be a motorcade of motorcycles starting at JTS Trucking here in Rome at 12:30. They will escort the wall. It will go through Boyd, Paradise, Bridgeport, and then to Decatur. Please come and show your support. You can stand along the route and wave a flag. On the 29th, the opening ceremony will be at 2 o'clock. Channel 4 may be there, and this is on Vietnam Veterans Day. Thursday, the schools will visit, so they think there'll be a few thousand kids. You might not want to go on Thursday. Friday is to honor law enforcement and first responders. They will have a program up there. Saturday, April 1st at 1 o'clock. Sorry for the Easter egg. There will be a veterans program. And Sunday, there is a ride to the memorial, and it will close at 3 p.m. The Rome veterans are supporting the Wise County veterans who are the ones sponsoring this. The wall is amazing. It's 8 foot tall in the apex and 360 foot long. And there are several panels that will be on the ground for 9/11. So they're going to do the Lost Battalion of Wise County and several other things, fire, police, all of this. It will be open to the public 24/7 from the opening ceremony on Wednesday, March 29th through 3 p.m. on April 2nd, Sunday. So if anyone would like to help set it up, dismantle it, or guard it, I know the Wise County vets would really welcome the help. And I hope to see a lot of the citizens from Rome at this event. Thank you.
And last, we have Ashley Majors. Mine is short and sweet. I just wanted to say, Ms. DeGan, thank you for keeping us all informed during the weather and everything you're doing. Also, council, if we could revisit the notifications from Wise County for the storms instead of just social media, I think it would be very beneficial. And as well as GoGov, I think that might be helpful as well. But that is it. Thank you for doing a great job. Oh, and also, number 6, forgot this one. The Waste Connection annual increase, since all of our water has gone up, if you can also take in consideration the other cities and their contracts, and also take in consideration what our increase might be. So thank you.
All right. Is that it, Ms. Odom?
Yes, ma'am, that's it.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to the consent agenda. Number 1, minutes of City Council regular session dated February 23rd, 2023. Number 2, amendment to logic agreement from meeting on February 23rd, 2023. And Police Department 2023 annual report. And so if I can get a motion on those 3 items.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. A second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Monthly staff reports and board minutes. Departments, administration, building and development, fire rescue, municipal court, police and public works. Any verbal statements to be made? Let's move along. We're going to rearrange the regular agenda at the request of our city administrator and go ahead and let these SCADA guys go first. SCADA system upgrades to ensure continued water monitoring service for Rome.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have two gentlemen here this evening that can speak to this far more eloquently than I can, as I'm fairly new to this game of the SCADA system. But currently in your agenda commentary, you will see that we use this supervisory control and data acquisition monitoring system, more affectionately called SCADA, to tell us how our water system is doing and how things are functioning. We have a standalone desktop currently that we use to monitor that system, and we don't have any redundancy. So if it goes down, we lose any care and control over how much water is in the elevated tank, storage tank, how much is in some of our reserve tanks. And so I spent some time after I came here to Rome talking with this vendor of how we may upgrade this. This was a recommendation that they had because the current interface that we have on site is over 20 years old and is no longer supported by the vendor. We are requesting a replacement of that system. It's a major investment for the city, but we can use some of the money that we receive from RVR as part of the upgrade to the system. And I do have both these gentlemen here with some live data that they can show you. And I asked Jesse to come this evening if you need some in the field experience as far as how this works. Gentlemen, I'll turn it over to you.
Should I get over there?
Find where you're at.
Okay. So my name's Kent Meyerhofer, and I'm the owner of WECO Controls. WECO Electric Inc. is the official legal name. We've been doing this work for about 30 years, and we've seen a lot of things happen in the last 30 years. About 30 years ago, an automated system was when you close the contact on the phone line here, it would travel 5 miles down the road and turn a pump on. That was your automation. That's about all it was. Today, it's a whole lot more than that. Now, I have an hour and a half, right? Okay, so I will move it on. So, but I want to just kind of give you a little bit of idea of what it is. And I've got a unit here. This is called a remote telemetry unit. And this is what we put out in the field. We'll put it at the elevated tanks. We'll put it at the pump stations, at the lift stations. And we've got a modem on it. It's a cellular modem right there. This is a PLC, a power supply. And this is where we bring in the inputs and outputs, which is what monitoring the pump status, turning the pump on, turning the pump off, measuring flow, level tank levels, and those kind of things. So we gather that information up with a remote telemetry unit that we place at each pump station, each lift station, elevated tank, and then we bring it back to a system we call a gateway, and then we put it up, and this is called Quick Data. This is our service where we gather everything up, and we've got a graphic interface. You can see 2 pumps are green there, 2 pumps are red. The green means they're running, the red means they're not running. You see the tanks, you can see, it's a little dark, but you can see the level of the tank, the graphic where you can see the level of the water in the tank. And we're borrowing North Lake's system right now. And this is, in fact, live data on North Lake's system, which is right down the road. So you can turn your pumps on and off here. You can manage it. You can get information about the status of everything. If a tank goes low, it's going to initiate an alarm condition and it'll call out whoever's on the alarm call out list. We usually have about 3 or 4 names on there. If the first person doesn't answer, the second gets it, and it goes to until somebody reaches out and answers it. Voice, text, and email. So it's come a long ways between the old phone lines and what we do now. A little bit about WECO. I guess I talked about WECO, but I'll make it quick here. So if you've got some questions, if you want me to make some clarifications or anything like that, I do want to tell you one thing right now we're experiencing that we've never experienced before is delivery of PLCs. with chips is like 38 weeks from order. Maybe. So that's a tough thing to deal with. So I've offered a suggested plan. We really do need to update the system. It's gone way past its serviceable life. It does need updating. But we can update the communications and things right now. And then when we get the PLCs in, we can do that. But it's an early warning system. With the growth that you have in this area and the water demand you have, you really need to know if you have a break in a water line. This will allow you to know that. Oh, wait, it's not going to tell you when a break is, but when the tank goes, you're going to know that the level is, there's a problem out there sometime. And if you ever have a problem, we monitor it too. We keep up with things too. So Ken's my right-hand guy, and he's many times can reach out to somebody and say, hey, you realize you got a leak somewhere? Who'd you do that to the other day? Honda. But anyway, so we can offer some things, and with this new system that we're recommending, we can reach out and maintain service or program anything from our office. So we can eliminate road time, which you do. I don't like road time, but and you don't like road time because you're going to have to pay us to be driving up here to it. So we can reach out and do things a lot more efficient and effective today than we could years ago. So with that, I'm going to stop, and if somebody has some questions, I'd be glad to entertain them.
So y'all are monitoring the system, the city doesn't? Or
we do not monitor it. I mean, we put it all in place so you can monitor it and you can do anything, but we still have the ability to monitor if there's something we catch, if we see something. We're not doing it for a fee or anything.
so besides everything breaking down in the water infrastructure, with the SCADA, what issues are we having with it right now?
Well, you've got a software system that's about 20 years old, and it was quit supporting it about 10 years ago or better. It's very unstable. The computer's not in good shape. Well, this is a cloud-based system, so all you have to have is a tablet or a computer that has internet access, and you can get to the system. So you eliminate having to update a computer every 4 or 5 years and spend $20,000 or $30,000 on a new software system.
Jesse, do you want to speak to anything that council may have? I see that you've come in, but we've had this conversation in the field, and currently staff, they have to come into the office to check anything on the system. With the tablets, they'd be able to do that remotely. So if we have an ice event, if we have another winter storm or just a general storm, they can take that with them and they can be notified to that extent. Plus what we have now, if it goes down, correct me if I'm wrong, it could take hours, if not days, to bring it back online, because it is just based on a desktop in an office with no redundancy, no backup, nothing.
A good example, city of Seagoville, we've been telling them they have the exact same system you have. We've been telling them you need to update. Well, it's like the old Fram commercial. You can pay me now or you can pay me later. They didn't. Their system was down, and we mobilized over a weekend and got them something where they could see elevated tank levels with some of the equipment we had, and got them at least where they could function until we could get a system. But it took us like 3 weeks to get that done. So in the meantime, they were really out. They had to took a lot more time for them to run around and check everything, but were able to look at the levels. We were able to look at them, so we did get some things done. So we can fix some things, but it's a lot more difficult to do in a weekend when you're trying to dig up stuff than if you plan it out and do it more efficiently.
What is the cost of this?
Well, you can phase it in, which if you'll look in your packet, there's some information in there that talks about phase 1 and phase 2 for labor and materials. I think Kent could speak a little greater in detail as to how those phases come in, because there's also some annual costs that would come based on how many tags we have within the system. Kent, did you have those numbers with you by chance?
That I put together?
I've got Exhibit A.
Yes.
So phase 1 comes in at just right at 65,000, although this bid is now over 30 days old, and so we would have to make sure these numbers are still close. Phase 2 is just at 72,000. And then there is the quick data and the annual cellular service that we would need to. The quick data is $7 a tag a year, and we have is that our estimate right? 500 tags.
That's what we've estimated. We estimated that.
So that would be in the utility fund, not general fund, where we would allocate that $3,500 a year as an ongoing cost, and then the $4,800 a year in that ongoing cost for the modems that we need on all of our various systems, the tablets that the staff would use that they could take home and be notified and still monitor the system from wherever they're at, in the field or at home.
And we have funds to do,
We have the money from RVR that's for water system upgrades that we could allocate to this.
and that would be for all of it, or just phase 1?
I would recommend phase 1 and 2, and then we build the yearly packages into the utility fund's annual budget. We have not spent any of the money, is my understanding, out of the RVR money that they gave to the city for the water system as of yet.
I think that would, I mean, if they're going to pay for it, I feel like that would be something that we need to upgrade.
It's very, very unstable at
Yes.
this point. We even have, we've got some other things within the system, and I don't know that it necessarily goes to this, and Jesse, you can correct me, but there's one of our wells that you have to hold your tongue just right to make sure that it's going to hook up, because if it pops out, the whole thing's down. And so it's a challenge. And if we can start to use some of those funds that have been allocated to us for infrastructure repair to make these kind of go a little bit more smoothly, because staff right now are spending a lot of time going around fixing things that need to be replaced, rather than think of well 5 when we had the pump go out and we didn't fix the backup, and then they both went out, and then well 5's offline. And even if you make the decision to move forward with this today, it could be up to 3 years before we get everything installed, just based on technology in and of itself. So the longer we wait, the more the cost goes up, and the longer it takes before this is implemented.
Well, I make a,
38 weeks before you do this, before you get the check.
There's a possibility. They're just not being very, they won't commit very much. That's what they're telling us, they think. But, you know, we could possibly, if we get it done, we can get it done quicker than that. It's not going to take us that long as getting the material. And another thing I want to say is with the cellular communications that we use today, it's so much faster, it's so much more reliable. And what we found is, as opposed to using radios that we were using, and that we have been using, and we still do a lot, is we don't have the damages. We don't have the lightning storm damages or anything with the cellulars, because we don't have this big tall antenna sticking up there saying, hit me. The little small cellular antennas just don't do that. So when we roll a truck, take 2 guys out with a lift to go out and maintain one, repair one damage, you're going to be paying what the cellular service is in 1 year. So you're actually more cost effective that way.
And given the costs, is that not something that has to go out to bid?
I think this is a sole source for SCADA.
Does it have to be SCADA? Is there another system that
I think
provides the service?
SCADA is the
SCADA
industry
is a
standard.
industry term for supervisory call and data acquisition.
Okay.
So you can, there's several things that we've done in a lot of different ways. Quick Data is our proprietary product. So we're the only ones that can provide that. There are systems out there. They're great, not as good as ours, but they're really good too. So you know, we've done high tech proposals, but so when somebody wants to get a lot of, where you propose your system and then other people will propose one and build that out. So there are other ways to do that. We've kind of done that a little bit with this again, is we put this proposal together, talk about what we do as opposed to other people, but I don't want to put words in your mouth on that. So
Rico is also our current vendor, so it would be very seamless to move from the company that's been with us for years into this product as well.
we have not been doing it for years. But the people you had.
How long have you been with us?
How long has Sean been here? 3? Okay. Well, we should have been doing this before now.
So it's been years.
That's been longer than I thought.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So, good afternoon. A big problem we had with our old SCADA people, DHS automation, since they were like, there's two guys that run it, they did call outs at their turn. So if something went down, it was just hectic getting them out here. And that's why Sean moved on, because it was just hard getting them out here. They just, whatever they wanted to do, hey, we're not going in. We'll be in next week. Okay.
So customer service was not,
Miserable. Yeah. It was okay, probably 15 years ago. Last 7 years, just nothing. No response, no communication, nothing. And it makes it harder on us. Sorry, I'm a little shy. But yeah, it's a problem. And I say it needs to be fixed before it gets worse and gets out of our hands.
And
And
really, especially after talking with you, the other two public works guys we have, anything that we can streamline for them, I'm all for it. It's going to allow them their attention to go somewhere else that's needed. So, yeah.
I think I'm going to make a motion to approve the upgrade to SCADA.
I'll second.
Sorry, who was the second?
Let me just ask you one question. How's your service been since we've been taking care of your business? I'll pay you later.
All in favor? All right.
Hey, just a moment, Mayor, we have
Yeah.
some clarification if you could.
I make a motion to amend the contract, or for the city administrator to go into negotiations to amend the contract. And authorize to sign it.
Okay.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. This will make their life a whole lot easier.
And, all right, let's go to the number one item now, that will become number two, monthly update from city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of the items that we have on here for each first meeting of the month to bring you up to date on the things that we have worked on. So I'm going to move through this fairly quickly, maybe. You remember when we had a conversation before about this last month in February that I talked about the budget work. So we will start kicking that off with department heads, looking at compiling the inventories and the information that council needs as we go through the rest of the budget process this spring to do that preliminary work on the budget. I'd also like to get some direction from you all this evening on a benchmarking list for cities so that we can start pulling some data instead of just going through the conversations that people have had, that we have some data to actually pull from, because our budget needs to become a little bit more robust than it is. There are two different types of budgets that most cities will put forward. You either have a line item budget, which is what we use now, or you can go full bore with the GFOA budget that you submit, which is 200 pages long. We don't have a need for that much information, but the line item budget we have outgrown because it doesn't give the residents and the people that we're serving the type of information on the goals that the council has set for the city, what type of things we intend to accomplish in the next 1, 5, 10 years, depending upon how far we're looking out, and the reasoning behind the decisions that were made so that they understand how the council has reinvested in Rome. So in preparation for that, I have started building some things that I know we need in that budget document in and of itself, breaking out the departments to look at it through the lens of what's in your general fund, what's in your utility fund, which is an enterprise fund, as some of you may know, having been on council for a while, then what other projects you may put on the radar that are capital improvement related, be it streets or other infrastructure, that can kind of give people the view that these are things that we've discussed in these council meetings, because while we do have a good attendance of folks at the meetings, we don't get the message out to everyone. So the budget document ought to be able to tell a story of what the city of Rome holds dear and what we value and what we're pursuing. And the line item budget is just at its most, the most basic form. So we've backed up some of the dates internally to work with staff. I'll be bringing that forward to you all. But that benchmarking list would allow me to pull data from those cities that we can use to discuss as to what do we want to reach for, how well are we doing in some other areas in service delivery, because that's something at some point, once we get some of our basics taken care of, we need to measure our service delivery and how well are we doing in relation to some cities that are close in size to us or even slightly larger than we are, so that we can have a reach goal. So that's something that we'll discuss this evening. As I mentioned to you before, the consultants that you allowed us to hire came in and helped us, or helping us to finish out last fiscal year. One of the consultants spent a better part of a day with Bobby finishing out, because we transitioned from several different independent bank accounts to one consolidated cash account for your general fund. I think what caused us a little bit of a delay is that was changed not only towards the end of a fiscal year, but also mid-month. And it was very difficult to have one foot in one system and one foot in another system. And so they were able to come in and help Bobby work through that. We have also been trying to reach the auditor, because as we have closed out last fiscal year, I need that year audited and I need it to be given to you all, because the auditor works on behalf of the council. Staff simply provides them the documents they need to audit. However, we've sent a couple of emails, we've left messages. I don't know if the gentleman is not in business anymore. There was some conversation from staff that he may be working under someone else's umbrella, but at best we need to get last year's finished, and we also need to probably send out some requests for proposals and see if there are any auditors more local that would be of assistance to us to take care of our books. Yes, ma'am.
I think he retired, and when we went through the last audit, he cycled that over to someone, even though he participated.
Well, Eric had an email from him saying that he just let him know when our fiscal year was ended for 2022. So I thought he was still going to do this last fiscal year, because he just sent him that last fall. But maybe he has gone ahead and retired.
And
but we're still
if
checking.
I remember right, the auditor was in Wichita Falls.
He's in North Richland Hills, is my understanding.
But the group
MWH.
The group that he's
yes.
working under, I don't know. You all will know more than I do. Okay.
That's my memory.
Well,
We might go back and look at our minutes.
do you have any idea what month that might have been? No.
No, I think it was later than that, but
Okay, I'll go back and review the minutes, because we've managed to get a good majority of those scanned into the Laserfish system, and we can search by keyword. So that's kind of the preliminary budget work that we've done. Moving on to communications, we've had several new subscribers to our Facebook account. I know that you all have seen and or heard some of the work that we've done, but in the last 30 days, this is kind of some interesting statistics. We've had 153 new followers to the page, which is great, because it helps get the word out, because even if 2 or 3 or 5 of those share the information, it exponentially goes out. We've had in the last 90 days new likes of the page, and I'll be very clear, Facebook is not my happy place, so I'm figuring this out as we go. But we've had 127 new people who have liked our posts, so they hadn't engaged with us before. But here's the interesting number that I found is we've reached over 30,000 people in the last 90 days. And a reach is they've read our story, they've spent some time on the page, or they've liked it, or they've shared it with someone. And then we've engaged with almost 3,500 people in the last 90 days. So that's really great, because it shows that that message is getting out and more people are watching what we're doing here. And I've noticed a lot of our official organizations in Wise County have joined our Facebook page to get some information from us, like Emergency Services in Wise County, City of Boyd, some others like that have actually tuned in to see what we're doing. As you can imagine, the most engaged stories that we've had were the semi truck on the bridge that Chief took the picture of that was facing the direction it shouldn't. And then the QT update. Strangely enough, apparently that pushed a few buttons for some folks, and they were very clear on their concerns with traffic with the QT. So hopefully we'll be able to work through that as best we can. And then we also had really good feedback from Ms. Majors. Thank you so much for the the update we had when the power was out recently. That was definitely an interesting situation that we really took the brunt of that for Wise County from the standpoint of all the poles that broke for us. Any questions on the communication piece? Okay. On records management, we're still scanning documents into that electronic repository. One of the things that I did out of the public works budget was I bought a scanner to assist Shayna in that task because there's just so many more records than we ever expected. I worked over in Mr. Dinsmore's office with both Jesse and Chris to kind of get some sort of a lay of the land of the documents we had there, and we're getting them all organized into what's TCEQ related, what is historical document related, what's current water system related, and we're getting them into folders on that electronic system to provide that backup. We've also obtained a few quotes for someone to shred the records once we have those scanned. I need to file your records management plan that was just approved with the Secretary of State, and I will get that on order to start going that direction next week. And then as you adopted all of those local government record schedules, we can start filling out the destruction records and get those ready to be shredded. Looking at the last bullet point in this slide, development in and of itself. As most of you have seen, QT's begun the process of clearing the land and the property behind us for their new store. Chief Estes actually showed me out back what the space looks like here, and I'm shocked what it looks like without the trees. You can see all the way to Boyd and then some without it. So being up here on this hill has definitely made a difference, and you never really realize what trees shield until they're gone. So it's definitely going to change the landscape. For those of you who were concerned about the historical retention wall that runs along behind this building and went over into the QT side, they did as requested by council, and they stacked all of that stone, and Jesse and the gentleman have moved that off to one of the wastewater treatment plants. Is that correct? The west plant? And so we can use it for later if we ever do anything with the old school, or if we ever have any other building project at the park, we might be able to resalvage some of those historical stones to use around the city. The townhomes, I have not heard anything from that gentleman who's developing those yet, but that doesn't mean they're not still in progress. RVR, I've had some initial conversations with Mr. Pinkoff on the progression of the development, and as I have mentioned to you before, we actually do have people living over there now. I was able to go and talk with the two ladies that are heading up, is it D.R. Horton, Chief, and Perry Home. I was able to create those relationships with both those ladies who are in the sales offices to establish those connections, which was really nice to meet both of them. So as far as development's concerned, that's all I have at this time. Any questions on what we've seen since the last time I visited with you? Okay. Yep, ma'am.
I do have one question. On the consolidated account, you mentioned that. So in this process that you're working on and updating and all that kind of stuff, are we going to be able then to see, even though those accounts have been closed and put into the consolidated category, are we going to be able to know what the balance is for those individuals?
Yes, that's a great question. And so within the consolidated cash, we have funds that all of that information is contained within. And once we get this sorted out, I will be implementing a quarterly proposal to you that you will all see each quarter as to what, in addition to the monthly records that Shayna provides you, we will have a quarterly overview of where we're sitting financially, not only on revenues, but also expenditures. So what I'm used to using is a red, yellow, green system. It's very common in local governments because it's easy to understand, and governmental fund accounting is so much more complicated, at least to me, than some of the other things that your average user, if you're not in these funds every day, they're difficult to kind of figure out what goes where. So we break them down with an explanation. We provide you, for instance, if the easiest one to understand is on sales and use tax. We monitor it each month. As long as it's coming in what's budgeted each month, then it will show green. If it goes under, it'll show red. If we're somewhere in the middle, you'll see yellow. And it will at least draw your eye to it to say, okay, we need to keep an eye on sales and use tax, because if it underperformed, we've got to make sure that we're cutting our expenditures in relation to those so that we're not out of balance in our budget. So that's something that we're moving toward. But until we close out that last fiscal year and until I can get fund balance days established and figure out where our last trial balances were so that we can roll all of that together for all of your funds, I'm not quite ready for that to come to council at this point, but that's what we're working on at City Hall. Okay, so reiterating some of the things that we talked about the last time, you'll see this pyramid, and we're still in the bottom talking about infrastructure and assets and dealing with the basics. I'd like to bring your attention back to the conversation we had about a facilities committee one time in the last meeting or one before. Since we talked, and a couple of the folks that were going to be reached out to discuss being on that facilities committee are now running for council. So we need to have a couple of other names of people who might be able to participate in that could function separate and apart from council to bring back a report to you. And unfortunately, I don't know folks well enough yet to provide you any suggestions. So if somebody has some ideas, I would be glad to hear them. And you can email them to me separately, and I'm happy to call them and see what their time schedule is in that regard. Mrs. DeGarmo was here earlier, and she was one of the people that could potentially serve, but she's left. And Mrs. Allen that worked with the city of Decatur. I've not had a chance to touch bases with her yet. So that was the other one of the four that we discussed. Okay. So transitioning now to some of the work that you've probably seen done within the city. This shows some of the things that we have put on Facebook. The police department, the fire, public works, and community center has undergone a little bit of a facelift as it relates to their parking lot. You can see this is a before picture that Chief Debus took for us of what the parking lot looked like prior to the work. It had several gullies in it that just from use and wear and tear of vehicles and people visiting that we had a considerable amount of runoff, and there was a lot of mud and dust that was getting circulated through all of the delicate equipment that's both in the department building itself and within the cars. And so this has cut down on that tremendously, and they're very pleased to say that it now looks like this. So this has been a really great improvement for them. It will also, if at any time council decides to do something different with that building and sell it as a commercial structure, that might make it a more sellable feature for that particular lot. But it has made a tremendous difference to them there. We had a lot of really good feedback from folks on social media as well for the hashtag and for the work that we've done to spread the word. These are just some different views of that same building from the standpoint of the work. In addition, this is the attic crawl space. We've had a tremendous amount of problem at the police department with drafty walls and air coming through. This is also where apparently the raccoon family has been spending their days. And so you can tell from looking at this that anything that they had blown onto the ceiling had long since peeled away. And then there was some insulation that had been put out, but looks like it's been moved over the years as it's gone through. And so we had a tremendous amount of trouble getting it somewhat warm and somewhat cool in the summer. And as you know, most of those men and women in there are wearing bodyproof armor as well as a tremendous amount of clothing. It's difficult for them to alter their clothing, but Chief was able to find a vendor who would come and put, of all things, these items up that they're now using in insulation. And it has made a huge difference in the amount of blow through of just general wind that staff will feel at their desks that may come through the rafters into the building. So we're hopeful that this will make life a little bit more bearable over there in that building until we make some final decisions. This is all coming out of the $50,000 or just under the $50,000 that council had approved in last budget for both fire, public works, and police to improve their buildings individually. And so this is where, in conversation with staff, they felt like they were going to get the most benefit from. In addition, you will see a before and after picture of some of the things that you probably noticed when you drove in here on this lot. This is also going to serve dual duty because as we use the community center for citizen engagement and for other gatherings, this just makes it, we have a whole lot more parkable surface now without the mud and the truck through that we would get for those. Jesse probably doesn't want to grab the mic again, so I will talk to you about one of the things that they're working on as well with Public Works behind the building. They're also looking to get some bids on a carport cover for the new trucks that are coming because we cannot fit them in the Public Works building with all the equipment that's in there. So it will help the trucks last longer. It will keep them out of a hailstorm if any of that should come through, and it just helps us maintain those assets. So we're going to get some bids on what that looks like out of that $50,000 that was already budgeted for Public Works. This you will see is the washout along the street of this building. So they were able to fix that curve, and that chip seal will, as it continues to get hot, it will continue to adhere down to the pavement. And if you look where most people don't go, this is what's behind the building that you're in now. So it looks tremendously different, and it is so much more serviceable and usable than what we had back there before. Any questions on this? Okay, well, that concludes the update that I had for you all on the organizational overview for this month, and we will bring you more information at the 1st of April as it comes in.
Let's go to the next one, budget preparation, potential benchmark cities for comparable data.
Thank you, Mayor. I will bring, this is information that's in your packet, but for the sake of the people that are here in the audience, I thought we'd put it up on the TV as well. This is the same data that I had provided to you all, where I looked at our peer cities of Boyd, Decatur, and Bridgeport as it relates to not only their population size, but their general square miles, the tax rate that they currently have within their city, their Wise County Appraisal District taxable value, which gives you some idea of what they're bringing in, or when you apply the tax rate to their taxable value, what they may receive from that in a levy. Then I also threw in their average home value and average median income for all 4 cities. These are some that I would recommend to council that we use as baseline cities for your budget review, for things that we can compare as it relates to personnel and staffing and engagement and communication efforts, etc. And Shane, if you'll go forward one more. Trust me. Which one? This? Okay. So here's another one. This is some other cities. Some of these are a little bit of what I call a reach city. When you are looking to put these in place for the city of Rome, we don't want to just look at cities that are our size or smaller. We want to find some that are our size. We want to find some that are within our region, and then we need to make sure that we have a couple of reach cities. Not all of these would I recommend to you, but I did pull the data so that you all could have a conversation as to which ones you would like us to use. Because in addition, you also have these cities that we have lost some staff to over the time. So best practice is to look at where are your staff leaving you to go. If you can, to some extent, match, that's lovely. If you can't, then at least you understand why you're losing that staff member. What do they have to give? And it's not just salary, but working conditions, days off, benefits package. It's kind of a robust type of thing that you're looking at, because salary only goes so far for employees. People really want to work in a place where they're happy, where they're valued, and where they feel like they're making a difference. And so I'm not recommending all of these either, but I am providing them for you so that we can have that discussion, because I need this information as we start the budget process. And I know you had it in your packet, and I know those in the audience is probably some of the first time you're seeing it, but I need some direction from council as to which way do you want us to go.
Was that a pregnant pause? You were waiting for us to
I am.
do something right now?
Yes.
Okay.
If you'd like my opinion, I can give it to you, but it's really council's direction to give to staff.
And are these cities going to be for, you said it's for employees of the cities. That's what we're comparing,
We
correct?
would use this for a variety of measures, not just, you can look at this through the lens of what type of an employment package do they offer? What range do they pay their employees in? How many days off do they have? What type of facilities do they use? How do they communicate with their residents? And a host of other things to kind of lay the groundwork for using those comparables for the council to make the decision budgetarily as to how they want to move things along within the limited resources we currently have. Knowing that, for instance, I would recommend to you that we use Boyd, Decatur, and Bridgeport for sure because they're in Wise County and they are peer cities for us, and that's closest to home. I would recommend Hazlet, Argyle, Justin, and Springtown as an additional 4, and that those would be used as a static measure to tell whether we are paying compensatory for our staff, if we're overpaying or underpaying, if we have the right amount of holidays, if we are using the right communications tools. For instance, Rome is a small city. Facebook is working fairly well for the moment. At some point, we're going to want to branch out. As mentioned, we've heard about the weather updates a couple of times. And I don't feel comfortable providing weather information on Facebook because if I miss it and someone gets hurt, I will not feel at all good about that. So we need an official source. And as I discussed with you before, Wise County Emergency Services can provide that for us for a relatively nominal fee. So we will be partnering with them for that type of message push out. But when it's time to go to Constant Contact and spend the $70 a month it takes to send out an electronic newsletter, or when it's time to go to GoGov, and we want to use that interactive piece, I can call these cities and say, what are you using? What has worked? Where have been the pitfalls? And what advice might you have for us, and vice versa? Does that make sense?
I just feel like it's hard to compare the cities because, I mean, even if you have the same population, you might not have the same facilities or the same
Correct.
services,
Which is
whatever.
why you look at it through a range, because a lot of these cities don't provide wastewater and sewer service. They don't have that under their belt that their staff are dealing with. So we have to look at it through that lens as well. If you're not ready to make a hard and fast decision on this, I need some direction as to what factors do you want me to compare and bring back to you so that we can use this data.
Well, I looked at the ones that you mentioned. I've looked at before, but we also I think we have to consider the direction that these cities are going. Just reading the White County Messenger, Bridgeport is a busy place over there. They're bigger and they've got more staff and that kind of thing. Boyd is, just right down the road, and they have a very comparable growth situation. They have a comparable population, not too far apart in the taxable values there. But when I've spent some time with them lately, and so what's different there is. If you look at what they pay their city manager, for example, city administrator, it's less than what we pay.
Mm-hmm.
However, they're hiring an assistant city administrator, and they're hiring or have already hired someone that's going to be their community coordinator. I forgot exactly what her name is. And so instead of overloading one person, they intend to increase the staff for better balance. Their buildings are big. As a matter of fact, they're going to do some additional work on the current city property there. They've established an economic development district. They have taken on debt for major projects, and that's how most successful cities operate, by taking that project. They've had no turn in the city council in almost 10 years. They canceled yet again the elections. Don't need to. Nobody's running against anybody. They're staying the same. They are consistent, and they are forward planning, and they have spent additional money for Parks and Rec expansion improvements. So their facilities are up to code. They are hiring enough staff to do what they need to do there. And
we're not in that same position. We're in a more difficult situation. And so what can, so my viewpoint is what can we learn from them? Maybe we can't accomplish all that they've been successful in doing. But that's what I was looking at. In Bridgeport, I don't know them quite as well. But Justin, if you just drive through Justin, just drive through Hazlet, you can see that progress, the growth, and how they've grabbed hold of it, or growth has grabbed hold of them, whichever way you want to look at It's it. probably the latter more than the former, but that's not unlike what we're dealing with now. Rome is going to explode as far as people coming this direction, because we have had numerous reach outs on development. And I know there's been concern in the general community as to what staff is paid here in Rome, but you all need to set some benchmarks so that you can have some data instead of pulling a city that is in East or West Texas that has a similar population that doesn't have near the proximity to the Metroplex and the amount of growth that's coming. Because while within the city limits we have about 1,700, 1,800 residents, literally a mile as the crow flies, we're about to have 10,000 homes. And that is going to impact this community in ways we can't even imagine. It already has with traffic. It's going to on city services and other things. And we need to start setting that groundwork to become a full-fledged city. And we have to have some people to compare to, because it doesn't give people the data to draw from, and hard always drives out soft. So we can sit and we can have a conversation about what we think and what we believe, but if we don't have the data, we don't know what's correct. So even if you're not prepared to make the conversation or the decision today, and I know this is a lot, but this is part of the work that council needs to do in the budget process as Rome continues to grow into a fully functioning city that at some point will likely have its own charter and be a home rule city and have some different things at its fingertips. QT is going to change the face of Rome. Love's changed the face of Rome. Blue Stem, all of that's going to change the face of Rome. We've got all kinds of people looking at us now because of the proximity, and as it's coming west and as it's coming up from the south, this is the nexus of Wise County. We are the doorway.
Personally, I like the ones that you mentioned, Boyd, Decatur, the Wise County ones. We need to be in touch with our sister communities here. And then the other three, I have also spent some time with city manager over at Justin, and he can talk to you about the growing pains over there, but they're going gangbusters. So, and I just want everybody to consider that, you can't just take a certain amount of data. If we're going to look at Boyd, we have to look at the whole of Boyd, because we're looking at the whole of what we have.
Yes. And we're never going to find an apple and an apple here. We're going to find an apple and a hybrid in some form or fashion, because we do provide water, sewer, wastewater, all of those things that a lot of our neighboring cities don't. And so when you look at Justin and Hazlet, they are tying into the bigger systems. But in our conversations with TRA, it's not going to be that much longer before we're going to have to consider tying into a bigger system for sewer. That doesn't mean we don't have to oversee it, because you do, but most of these cities that I did some research with, they don't own or maintain a sewer system. And we have not only one plant, but two. And we enjoy these beautiful rolling hills that we have, but they create a logistical challenge in providing services. So you have to trade one for the other, and this is the start of some hard decisions that we're going to have to make as a community, because development's coming whether we like it or not. We don't own the property that sits around Rome, and we have a tremendous amount of ETJ. And we've got to have some services to offer these people to bring them into our tax base so we can expand it, so we can continue to spread the burden of providing services across a wider range of people to keep costs down. Because if we continue to have a small tax base and a small number of citizens, the only way to provide the services is to raise the tax rate and continue to raise it and raise it. And you'll see that we are the lowest of most of these in Wise County. And I'm not advocating a tax change. I'm advocating that we have something to offer so that we can annex people or voluntarily encourage them or offer them something to come into our tax base so that we can fund the services that we need and want to provide. So it's part of a larger budget discussion that's coming, but this is the beginning. And so if you all can at least give it some thoughts, or if you're prepared to give me some direction, I can pull some additional data off some of these and we can start looking at which ones you all want to use.
I also agree with the Wise County cities. I think those should be a part of that comparison. Haslett for sure, because I mean, they're right down 287. I don't know about the other ones. I would say Justin, but
And Argyle was one of the other ones.
Argyle's a little bit of a push. When you look at its certified tax value, they're much higher in that regard. So is Haslett, but Argyle does not offer a wide range of services. That's still a very small city. Bartonville is another one that I have on here just because of population size, but they are not a comparable to Rome. They have limited staff and they want to keep it that way. I think they might have 4 or 5 people. I don't know exactly how many, but it's very small.
So when Ms. DeGan says benchmark cities that we need to look at, I'm thinking we're not looking for cities comparable to us doing things that we want to do right now. We're looking at cities that are doing things that we want to get to eventually down the road, not that we want to do right away. So Decatur, we don't want to put in a new park right away. Bridgeport, we don't want to put in a new Main Street right away, but they're doing those things and we want to get there. Their tax rates are similar to ours. So if we kind of model after them, eventually a few years down the road, we can get there. So yes, the Wise County cities, I think we're agreeable with. Now we have the unique 287, 114 travel center right here in the middle of town, and none of these other cities have anything comparable to that. So we have a lot more travel through than these other cities. But some of the other ones that have similar medians or intersections, I think like Haslett, Justin, North Lake, I've been around a lot. Azle and Springtown, they've kind of done their own thing and they've just been petering along for decades. So I don't know if we want to model after them. But Haslett, North Lake, Justin, they're booming just like we are. The housing developments are all over 407, 114, 287, everywhere. So I think what those cities are doing, I think if we kind of follow in their footsteps, we can kind of use those as the benchmark cities for, I think, where we want to get to eventually.
I may be biased, but on the last 3, Rhone fits right in. I mean, they have the 2 major highways sitting right smack dab in the middle of the city. To me, 114, 287 is Roanoke on steroids when it comes to traffic, or what's about to come. But out of those 3, I'd go with Roanoke because it fits closer, but all the other ones,
And it's just interesting that places like Roanoke, looking at the numbers, they have a lower tax rate than we do, but their certified tax value is like
Much higher.
way above ours.
Well, and they
So,
have a very nice mix in their tax base.
Yes.
It's not just ad valorem from the
Commercial.
standpoint of residential. You've got a significant manufacturing. You do.
so if we use cities like those, it goes to show we can keep our taxes where they are. If we just kind of game plan after that mixed use, we can get to there at that tax value as well.
Well, and that's one of the things that, to your point, Elaine, yes, I know that the Boyd City Administrator and my pay scale is a little different, but I do have the experience of dealing with these large developments and negotiating these agreements and making sure that Rome's getting everything they should get as it relates to either sales and use or ad valorem or expansion of that tax base, and doing the analysis to make sure that Rome is what we all envision it to be in 10 or 20 years.
Well, my point with that was they'd gotten to a certain productivity so that they could work their budget instead of working one person wearing many hats. They could see that they were spreading themselves thinner, and so they
looked at what was the best way to increase their staff based on their upcoming needs, and that's what they've done. And so, instead of continuing to increase that salary base, they, not that they don't get raises, they also pay their city council. They also pay their mayor. Not very much, just a token amount, but nonetheless, that's part of what they do. And but instead, they expanded their staff so they would not be spread quite as thin. And so there's all kinds of different ways to manipulate. And blessedly, we're not there yet. I do have that broader experience that allows me to do this work, and we're grateful. And I'm enjoying it. Every day is a new something that I'm learning or figuring out from Jesse or Chris in the field or things of that nature. So we're in a good position, but we're also needing to prepare ourselves for the future. So I will start with the three in Wise County, Hazlet, North Lake, Justin, and Roanoke, and I'll throw it in. And as we bring it forward through the budget, if you want to add to or subtract from, we can massage this throughout the budget process in and of itself, but it gives me someplace to start. Okay, thank
You
you.
need any kind of motion? But
No,
that's your
ma'am, just direction.
Very good. All right, let's go to number 4, surplus or obsolete equipment auction.
Okay. This item is on the agenda, and Chief Estes is here to answer any questions that you all have. We have several items in the back. That was one of the things that I noticed when I was first hired within the fire and EMS department that have well exceeded their lifespan. You did have pictures of this in your packet, but I have also put them here for the people who are in the audience. If you have any questions about any of these, we're happy to discuss them, but we would like to get these on a Renee Bates auction towards the end of this month to try and monetize these assets and get anything of any value out of it for the city of Rome and set it aside for whatever it is that council wants to use that money for going forward. Right now, these either the equipment in and of itself or the vehicles are non-serviceable, beyond their lifespan, and right now they're a very ugly eyesore in the back, but we're happy to discuss any of those if you have questions.
I think this is just a ministerial item. We don't need stuff laying around that we can't use or broken or whatever. So I motion to authorize taking this to the auction.
I second.
Favor?
Aye.
Thank you, council.
Number 5, sheriff notice dispatch fee for fiscal year 22-24. I'm sorry, 23-24 budget year.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item that I also included in your packet. I'm sure that most of you have either seen the newspaper article that was put out in the messenger a few weeks ago, or you have heard of it through various conversations. But we originally heard of this, when the sheriff came to visit Chief Debus at the station, and it was discussed as a possibility at that time, one that may be a very real possibility, but it wasn't actually, there were no hard numbers that were given during the first meeting. It was brought up at a subsequent visit with the chief that this was actually going to be more than a possibility, and he was given the number of about $65,000 that the sheriff's office wants to charge the city of Rome for dispatch services. I have been to a few meetings, actually one meeting, and I've had some email exchanges and some conversations with Chief about this. They're basing it on an increase in service calls, or calls for service, as they say, that the city of Rome is generating. Chief is here to discuss those with you if you have questions. Chief Debus and myself went to the Boyd City Council meeting on February the 16th because their city council also discussed that. Mayor Mitchell was there, and there were other community members who were interested who were also at that meeting. I put the copy of the news article in your packet. The takeaway, and Mayor, you can add to this as we go through, from the Boyd meeting was that they were very concerned at the $40,000 number that the city of Boyd was given that they would need to pay, because it would either require a tax increase, reduction in services, or staff reduction in order for them to absorb that into their budget. And so they're very concerned about that charge. There's been several questions that have been raised as it relates to how the county's funded and the monies that we're already sending to the county in some degree, and some of those I'm happy to go into some sort of detail with you on. This would mainly affect the cities of Boyd, Runaway Bay, Rome. That's it, Chief. The three of us will be charged. So they are setting ours at 65-ish, 65 to 70, based on calls for service. They're setting Boyd's at 40, Runaway Bay at 20. And the logic behind this is to hire one additional dispatcher to handle the call load that currently exists from whatever we're generating into that center. So they're looking to share that service with us. The sheriff discussed the fact that Bridgeport and Decatur have dedicated dispatch centers, so they handle their own. But Boyd and Rome and Runaway Bay do not. They say that the communication center for the sheriff is often short-staffed, so they're proposing another telecommunicator along with the console and the equipment to fund another dispatcher. He mentioned that the average dispatcher salary is $65,000, but there's an additional $10,000 that would be required for licensing and the radio station and the consoles, etc. Some of the figures that we were given is that the Rome PD generates 6,300 calls for service approximately a year, that Boyd generates approximately 3,800, and Runaway Bay is about 1,900. So this is a multi-layered conversation, in my opinion, because most of you may or may not be aware that the city of Rome also shares, as do every other city within Wise County, a portion of their sales and use tax with the county. And so when I went back and just did a rough calculation on 2018 through today's numbers, we've sent about $1.3 million to the county, just in sales and use. That doesn't include the ad valorem assessment that may come upon some of our citizens. And so some of the things that were discussed at the Boyd meeting and that I think you all need to be aware of is that there are some people who consider this to be a double taxation at this point. They're already paying an ad valorem assessment. We're already sending sales and use tax that could be used in our community. And that's something I'd like to talk with you about as we move forward, because on average, we're sending about $800,000 a year to Wise County. It continues to grow as our sales and use tax collections continue to grow, and with QT coming on and other things that may come along, 34, 33, that number's just going to continue to go up. So I will say to you, as your city manager, I question the need for an additional $65,000. I further question how they're going to hire another dispatcher when they have almost 35 or 40% of their staff unhired in that department at the moment. And I would want to see, in my opinion, but it is certainly council's call, I'd like to see a deeper analysis as to how this impacts us, because $70,000 to our budget is a significant amount of money, in addition to all of the other monies that we're exporting to the county as it is. I also had a chance to look at their budget online, and it looks like, if I read it correctly, and don't hold me to it because we need to do some more data analysis, that they received an additional almost $2 million in ad valorem because of value increase and tax base expansion. So I don't understand personally why these three cities need to bear the brunt of hiring another dispatcher.
Yeah, that sounds like a budget issue with the department, not they need to hire somebody, so they're going to make somebody else pay for it. We're already paying in that much money. I don't think we need to be paying double the taxes, as you say. Not to mention, to my knowledge, they have an abhorrent retention rate with their dispatchers, and they can't keep them. Once they hire them, they can't keep them. So again, that is not our issue. So what kind of feedback are y'all looking for to move forward?
Well, the mayor and I have been invited to a meeting at the Boyd Community Center this Saturday, where some of the other mayors and administrators, managers will be. So I'm just bringing it to your attention because previously when the mayor asked me about this, it was a rumor, and then it became firmer as things went along. I will tell you, I have yet to speak to Sheriff Aiken. He has only spoken to Chief Debus, and he and I, we've not been introduced yet, so that may be part of the issue. But I'm not sure where we're going to squeak out $70,000. And if we are going to have to pay that, in my opinion, I would want to see us search for a different provider or alternate providers I will tell you that within the last 30 days, we had a woman who lives in Old Town call for service for someone who was in their yard. And she was able to call City Hall 5 times before dispatch was even calling Chief Davis to send an officer. I don't know what the delay was, but it took an inordinate amount of time to get someone from our office dispatched there. And I would like to see some more responsive customer service on behalf of our residents.
Chief, would you mind briefing us on your conversation with Sheriff Aiken and kind of give us some insight into this? And then also, I don't know how, if there's any validity to the rumor, but it seems like this came directly after our relationship with Aurora and the fact that the sheriff's department was reached out to and they declined multiple times to attend, and now they're upset that they're not involved in that. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not.
Like I said, I've not spoken to Sheriff Aiken, so I can't really give you any insight on that. I have heard the same thing that you all have heard. There's also some other rumors that I hope are not true because we need to maintain a good relationship with them, but I'm not sure they fully grasp the impact of that type of money on a small city.
So to Ms. DeGan's point, this was first brought to my attention in December at the Wise County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Aiken did bring it to my attention that this has been addressed at least twice in the past. And a few years ago, my predecessor was briefed that this might be coming down the pike, if you will. He did tell me then that they were going to move forward with it, but didn't have numbers. He then again met me here at the police station this past month or so. He visited my office. He visited the chief's office in Boyd and the chief's office in Runaway Bay, and gave us those numbers: 65,000 for us, 40,000 for Boyd, and 20,000 for Runaway Bay. Which even Chief Reynolds in Runaway Bay made the point it's scalable. 20,000 to them is a lot of money, just like 70,000 to us is a lot of money. What I have repeatedly told Sheriff Aiken, we have a really good relationship, I think, and really it's a business decision. I've asked him to tell us how much he's going to charge us, what we get for that money, and I've already have been in preliminary talks with other vendors that can provide the same services, and we will bring that back to you guys to say, these are our different options, this is how much it costs, and then with Ms. DeGan's input as well as y'all's, we'll make a decision collectively what's best for the city of Rome and moving forward with our partners in Boyd and Runaway Bay.
As mentioned, I think one of the things that we have to consider is what is that half-cent sales tax being used for at the county level? Because that's a significant exportation of money that could stay within Rome and benefit our citizens directly. I have done some research. I actually spoke to Mrs. Wilson about this. I've spoken to the mayor about it to figure out when that was originally put in place. Chief actually got some more insight because I haven't been able to find anything in our records as to when that was voted in or when that was approved. But
so I can speak to that real quick. According to the Wise County auditor, that was passed that half-cent sales tax going to the county from all the cities was passed in 1989 to pay down county debt.
That's well beyond any lifespan of debt. And so if that's the case, then we need to recoup the monies back here for our city in that regard. And so Carvin's done some looking, I've done some looking, but I'm still struggling to figure out if it had a sunset clause or how long was that supposed to run, or if this is something that the entire county voted on. There's just some unknowns here with that.
Can we address the county commissioners? I mean, is that something that you could do, or I don't know.
I think we'll have some more clarity on that after the conversation on Saturday.
Okay.
Because I know there are some other people who have looked into this in those other cities that are affected that are equally as concerned. And I would want to pause until I knew what direction they were thinking to take, because collectively we have a greater voice than if I go individually or you go individually. And so there's just a lot of variables in here that this is not, in my opinion, the best plan forward for Rome itself, and that's what I'm hired to look out for.
I would also be interested in, you know, he says that we've looked at as far as budgeting is concerned. I want to see the budget. I want to see where they get their money, where the sheriff's department gets their money, how much from whom and which pot. And then, because if truly they're getting a piece of that, we need to, of that 5%, 0.5%, we need to know that.
Their budget's online.
And, but they need to show us that their forecast budget is in the red if they continue to provide that stuff. Because that's what he's saying.
That is what he's saying, but I'm not sure. I looked at their budget today. It's a line item budget. It's got all of the numbers out there, but I can't find the story behind it. And I can't find, and I've not had enough time to really pull it apart, how much each individual city is contributing towards the county for their service delivery, because they do provide services. But how does this affect us? For instance, the Boyd administrator pulled their numbers, and from 2019 through today, they've given over $1.1 million to the county. Somewhere in there, I would think would fund the dispatchers. And that's the question that is still an unknown to me as far as this is concerned. And then I further question, if you were fully staffed, would this be an issue? Because, you know, more hands make a lighter load. And if you could get fully staffed and retain them, would you even need to make this request? And that's, to me, a question that has not been answered well yet.
And just for factual numbers, I met with the sheriff this past week, and they have 16 slots for dispatchers. So 16 dispatchers authorized, and they currently have 6 openings.
So I would think that right there, there's 6 salaries that they're saving right there.
That was a question that was put forward, yes.
So long story short, I think we're not going to settle for the double paying. So yeah, if y'all want to move forward and figure out, you know, we'll pay the 65, but we're going to take back our taxes, something. So
Well, it's like I said, multifaceted, but I'd like to continue to research and bring it forward for council's review, because with us being a growing city and with the needs that the city has, I'm wondering if the time has come for that sales and use tax to have run its term, because Rome needs to continue to invest on behalf of its citizens. And the county is going to see exponential growth. And if I read their budget correctly, and if just the expansion of the tax base alone brought them another $2 million, then that's a question that we would have to grapple with at the local level. And I think that we need to be mindful of that for our citizens.
And you said the meeting Saturday was in Boyd. What time?
I believe it's at 10 o'clock at the community center, Mayor. Do you remember? 10 o'clock.
All right.
I would also like to see the other vendors too, to see if that's even an option.
Yeah, we've reached out to a couple cities, and they're both interested in possibly providing that service to us.
There's also something that they wanted to charge us for the number of inmates that they do hold.
Yes.
So
Rate for the number of inmates.
to the mayor's point, by statute, they have to provide a jail. Any class B or above is what we call a county charge, and that's included. They would charge $65 a day for any class C misdemeanor offense that we arrested on. That is very minimal. We rarely arrest class C offense. It's a you know, maybe a public intoxication once in a while, an assault, family violence once in a while. That would not impact our budget to the extent that we would be concerned about it. And as far as I know, I'm speaking to the other chiefs and city administrator in Boyd, they're not concerned about the class C arrests either. It's mainly the dispatch that we need to discuss.
Is this going to affect fire dispatch at all? Or is it just police?
It's all dispatch services, so we'd have to transition to a new provider. And currently, the only ones I know of just quickly are Bridgeport or Decatur, since they do their own dispatching. But again, we'd have to look at a proposal, and from Chief's view, what is this? It's a business decision. What kind of service are we getting for what money on behalf of the residents of Rome?
perhaps wait until we've got the rundown on the sales tax, the revenue that they've collected from us, and then also that meeting on Saturday.
Yes, ma'am. I think there's more conversation to be had and more data to be pulled forward.
We need a vote on that, or are you okay with the direction at this point? Let's go to number 6, Waste Connections annual increase.
Okay, this is something that was brought to our attention that Ms. Rutherford found that Waste Connections had sent us a notification that they have proposed an 8.4% increase that would go into effect, or has already gone into effect on February the 1st of 2023. For most cities, this is looked at annually, and it is a cost of business and passed on to the end user, or the people that are having their trash picked up, if you will. I will tell you one way to mitigate some of the costs for trash is to go to once a week trash pickup, but I will not recommend that to you. It causes untold heartache amongst the residents who are used to twice a week trash pickup, and will cause a lot of angst and upset residents. So unless it becomes just an issue that we have got to absolutely, we cannot afford to either pass this along, or we need to look at a once a week, this is a cost of doing business that Waste Connections is passing along to the end user as the resident. And either the council has the decision to attempt to find the funds in the utility fund to mitigate this, or we pass it to the residents, even if that's the most unpleasant of all of our choices. Somebody have a question? Did somebody raise their hand? Right? Do you want to-
Do we know, how much is it for waste or for trash?
So the increase would be about $1.25 per resident.
Having been through this in another city, I promise you that $1.25 is well worth it, considering you're still getting twice a week trash pickup. A lot of cities have gone to once a week, just not only for wear and tear on the streets, but also they're trying to push their people to recycle more, which is a whole nother conversation we can get into as to whether that's effective or not. But it causes immense consternation amongst the residents when you go down to once a week. So I would hold off on that as long as we can.
Can we please notify and on Facebook, any social media about our bulk pickup monthly? So to maybe help to really push that, whatever your decision is, to help with the cleanup, maybe whatever your decision is. I'm a big advocate on the monthly bulk pickup.
So all I need council to tell me is, are we going to move forward? They're going to charge it to the city one way or the other. The $1.25, if it's going to be passed on to the residents, or do you want us to try and find it in the utility fund?
Utility fund?
It's already razor thin, I will tell you.
If possible.
When we went through this before, we looked at every option. We looked at once a week. We looked at twice a week. We looked at recycling in addition to that. And we knew that these increases would happen. So this is not new information, and the city council went through this in great detail. And so knowing that it was still razor thin, as you've looked and seen, we really can't look for the city to absorb that. This is a pass-through. We're not making any additional money. We're not marking it up to help us do anything else for the city. It's strictly a pass-through. We talked about the recycling. Decatur has some recycling, but when COVID came and China quit taking glass and all that kind of stuff, They almost inspect over there in Decatur what you take in. And even plastic, they quit taking a lot of plastic. So the bulk pickup is the one thing that we opted to do so that some of those bigger things could be done. We do. So I'll make a motion, we just do as it passed through.
Okay, second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, executive session, can I just read the last section? Okay, executive session, section 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations to discuss or deliberate regarding commercial or financial information that the city has received from a business prospect that the city seeks to locate, stay, or expand in or near the city and with which the city is conducting economic development negotiations. A, Prairie Point, B, Rolling B, Blue Stem. All right, it is 7:31, convene to executive session.
This conference will now be recorded.
Ready? 7:44, we are back in regular session. Future agenda items from anyone? Oh, there's no action from executive session. Okay, then I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? We're out of here.